Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to our second episode. Let us know how the first one went. How you doing today, Norma?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good, feeling good. Started running, exercising again. Got the
Woohoo.
dopamine up a little bit. Trying to do it, focus on cardio a little bit more and all that. As you can see today, we have a special guest, our first guest for the video podcast. Let's go.
Woo woo.
So this is our
Really,
friend.
really thank you for that. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, this is our friend Raul. He's we know each other back since high school.
Mhm.
He's been really good friends, so friends with my brother and all that. And yeah, we just had him. He messaged us. He was the first person that said, "Hey, I want to be in it. I'm interested." So yeah, I was like, "Yeah, let's do it," and we just jumped on it right away. All right.
Absolutely.
So I was gonna say now, as always, we're gonna read the mission statement here. Give me 1 second. All right.
Our goal is to create a safe space for exploring mental health topics, sharing stories, and learning strategies for well being, fostering empathy, understanding, growth, and most importantly, love.
Nice, nice. There we go. And as always, if you guys have any feedback, if you want to be a part of the podcast, if you have any questions, any topics that you would like to us to discuss, that's the email right there you see at the banner, mindfulpodcastliving@gmail.com, mindfulpodcastliving@gmail.com. All right, and let's get it going. So my first question that I like to do is just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, your childhood, your upbringing, whatever it is that you want to share with us. Go right ahead.
I really appreciate you. Thank you both for letting me be a part of this. I think the mission statement that you just read was beautiful. Love, I think, is one of those fundamental things that is just very essential in all of our communities. That are often underrepresented. Um, my name is Raul Hernandez. I grew up in South San Francisco, and particularly the district of South San Francisco that was a little bit more low income, which is what people in our city call the east side of South San Francisco. So
Uh-huh.
grew up out there. I'm actually was born in Mexico, but I came here at the age of 2. Um, Grew up low income, experienced a lot of struggles as a migrant with me and my family. And so I recently graduated from San Jose State University with a Master's of Science degree in clinical mental health counseling.
Let's go.
So very passionate about helping others through mental health. My goals is to eventually become a licensed marriage and family therapist. And yeah, I think there's a lot to say. Uh, Coming from my community, it was challenged to kind of keep a positive outlook on life and a lot of the things that were in front of us. And so I think that hip hop music and there's kind of like a genuine curiosity in the human condition is what kind of propelled me to get into this type of field. So very thankful for that.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I remember that was not easy. Maybe it had started happening around you and all the things I remember in high school that were happening, like all the gangs and the shootings and all that stuff. I think started happening like right as we were finishing high school with Norma, because we're from the same graduating class, and you're 2 years younger than us, or graduated 2 years younger. I remember when it was started getting crazy, right? Like I said, a couple people got shot, and we had all the gang violence and all that stuff, and yeah, it was definitely challenging to that. Cool. If you might just a little bit more on your background, like tell us what your family dynamic was like, or something else there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, I grew up the oldest of three men, young men. I grew up with both of my parents. I'm very thankful to have both of my parents, even though there was not always like that kind of cohesion with communication and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But I was very blessed to still have both of them in my life and learning from kind of polarizing people. They were very different in their perspective in life, and so I was able to kind of learn from both parents of how to move around in this world. And at the same time, I think one of the fundamental things that happens to our community is that kind of that struggle to develop a like an identity that really resonates with all of us. I feel like that's kind of the main thing that is why there's a lot of street violence. In my opinion, is the just that kind of like almost like an identity crisis of what
Mhm.
it means to be, Mexicano, Mexicana, Mexicanex, somebody or Latinx, somebody or Latino, Latina, is kind of that constant struggle, of what it means to be who we are. And there's such a multiculturalism within our culture, and that's kind of something that I've always learned to navigate. That I'm still to this day just trying to learn more about who my ancestors were, like through my own like family lineage, and just kind of discovering that, and also through the understanding of what the whole field of psychology is. I feel like a lot of times it's perceived as very Western, very like Eurocentric, but in a lot of, if you really look at the history, you'll find that many people before, Freud and all these psychologists were in the kind of the conversation of psychology. We had a lot of like curanderos, curanderas from, many different tribes of Mexico that were practicing talk therapy. So I always try to put that perspective in the conversations when it comes to talking about mental health. It's very important. So I think I kind of
Mhm.
divulged into a different
No, that's
response.
fine, bro. It's
That
normal. Like I said, wherever the conversation goes, very
yes,
normal.
yes. I think one of the things that we are looking for. Sorry, I'm having like hair issues. Where's makeup in our makeup? Um, that is one of the things that we want is for the conversation to be very very natural, right? And if we take a little bit of what you're talking about, how we come from a Mexican background, and um, how we have detached ourselves so much from the mental health or the idea, the white mental health idea, right? Of like, los psicólogos son para los locos, and
Mhm.
all of this thing without realizing that that is something that was there within our lineage even before it was westernized, right? And part of going back to that is essentially this: us having conversations, us having organic spaces to talk about our struggles, what helped us, how can we invite other people from the community to join the conversation. This in itself is healing. So it's okay. All that to say, it's okay if we go on tangents here.
Right.
No,
Yes,
no
definitely.
problem.
Yeah, that's cool, man. And that's actually, I mean, we haven't talked about this with you, or I think with a lot of people outside of like just me and the conversations that we have with Norma. But that's kind of like where I am at because I'm not per se legitimately educated on this. But I've went through my struggles in mental health like for a while, pretty much all my life, and then shit hit the fan in like 2018. And then I said, holy shit, this is fucking crazy that not a lot of people know about this. And then I say, I'm going to make it my goal to educate and to help people as much as I can in doing this. So it feels a little bit weird to kind of like see myself as that, as like the curandero, the healer, the thing. I don't like the thing, the life coach thing. It kind of sounds weird. Like life
Hmm.
coach just seems kind of like weird to me, but I have to kind of get used to it. And our goal, just again to let people know and to let you know, Raul, is to eventually try to set up a nonprofit where through donations we're able to give out free therapy, free like talk
Absolutely.
therapy to people and go through that. And that's kind of our goal. And actually I was wanted to put it out there. I got the first person that I'm on a recurring call with every week where I'm talking to him, and it's been going great, and it just feels amazing to make a difference in somebody's life, and to kind of already see the progress just after a few conversations. And it's something I'm happy to do, And that's, I don't know when this will go out, but like we had and I saw you posted on your Instagram too, Raul, about the Kendrick Lamar concert. And I was like,
Oh
damn it, I have the call. I was like, I have the call at that time, but I was like, well, fuck it, this is more important. I have to go handle
yeah,
this. And then like surely it was done like right as the Kendrick started performing. So I got to do both. But I was like, well, I caught myself in saying, well, I'll be able to watch it again. And like the conversation with him is more important, and I have to show up and do that, something that I like doing anyways.
yeah. I appreciate you bringing that up because I think one of the like personally one of as I mentioned before, like hip hop music and psychology, sociology. These are things that kind of made me deviate from the kind of the being a statistic in my community. Being in a way a positive statistic, to show that and like I think Kendrick, I think he's one of my favorite artists because he, in his last album, he really like broke down what it means to go to therapy as a man. In his perspective, he always says that like in his community that men don't go to therapy, and like that's not a thing that they talk about with their emotions. And so he kind of takes people on a journey to finding that kind of healing of generational trauma. I think I really appreciate you bringing that up. I think that's one of those things that when because I was able to I had the honor to help clients out with who have had that generational trauma, and it would come up in conversations and in pláticas that we would have. It would be one of those things that I'm like, oh, this is something that is important to talk about in our communities. The generational. It's like uh, many grandfathers, grandmothers, many years and years back, they've gone through so much that is still being experienced now. Like colonialism has kind of shifted more into like the capitalist society, but it still, puts our people in a very vulnerable place, and often a lot of our behaviors are kind of expressed through that. Looking at it through the multi-generational lens of understanding how trauma works, we kind of see that, oh, okay, the reason why people behave in certain ways like this is because of generations of oppression that they have experienced. And I think one of my goals is to put that into the light of the conversation of therapy and mental health in general. To look at it through basically there's so much complexities to the reasons why people do things, and just kind of really putting that at the forefront when it comes to these kind of conversations.
Yeah.
Mm.
Are you familiar as you're talking about this? You might be. I'm about to shout out a couple people here that I follow because I don't know if you know, but I'm also I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist.
Wow.
Um, so like everything that you're talking about, I'm like yes, 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 yes. I love this. Um, have you heard of Doctor Manuel Samarripa?
I have not yet heard of.
Ooh, okay. So he is a I believe he's a psychologist, and he used to be in higher education professor and stuff like that. But he was like, I want my people to have more access to mental health, and he started with courses. Uh, Making them available to the community. And his ad on Instagram is Shikan Psych with a
Oh, yes, 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 yes. I
oh
actually I forgot the name, but yeah, I've been in contact with. I think they're based in Tech. He's based in
yes,
Texas, right? Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. So if you ever, I was just at I'm in my second shout out. I was just in Jamaica at the beginning of this year with Doctora Sandra Leon Villa, who she's here in Vegas, and there is a liberation. Oh my God, I'm going to butcher the name, but it's reclaiming identity through. I'm gonna have to look it up otherwise.
That sounds vaguely familiar too, though.
But he did a plática, and that is therapy is ours, right? Of how
Oh,
therapy is it's a practice that comes from our ancestors, our elders, and um, so there's going to he's not going to be a speaker anymore on this one coming up, but I think that that would be maybe a conference that you might be interested in. Is reclaiming identity for collective liberation.
mm,
So it is mental health. It's a BIPOC mental health conference,
mm.
and there is a lot of decolonial conversations and practices that goes on in that conference. So I think you might enjoy that.
Yeah, I think Dr. Manuel, because I saw his stuff on Instagram, and I was like, "Yo, this is like awesome that you're doing this." And I think there's someone else too that I forgot his name, but he posted something about having a like a consultation group within this framework of decolonization and also reintroducing the indigenous ways. I think. It's really amazing to see that. I'm like, wow, because it like I don't know if your experience was similar, but I imagine that going into graduate school, it's learning this like that kind of Eurocentric approach, and then being like, okay, like where like how do our how did our ancestors view human suffering, and how did they find that kind of healing, and that always kind of came up for me in grad school, like just kind of pondering always like, okay, I'm seeing it through the that's radical behaviorist view, but also how can I see it through those ways, and reading a lot of books like Gabor Mate. Dr. Gabor Mate has a book out. He has several books on trauma and how to look at it through kind of like a collectivist lens, instead of just like through the individual suffering and stuff like that. And uh, all these
Mhm.
topics, I just love. I could go on.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I'm like, Steve, we're gonna take you into maybe uncharted territory for you, because so in this relationship between Steve and I, he's like the logical guy. He's like, no, no, give me science, prove this shit to me, and then maybe I'll believe it, right? And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
more of like the spiritual and like ancestry and all this stuff, and then so so hopefully we'll be able to like bring you to this side of the world, Steve. But um it's funny when you say, I don't know if this was what happened for you in grad school, and it wasn't, because uh this journey of reconnecting to ancestors, reclaiming my indigeneity, like that is a very, very new journey.
Mm,
Probably 2022,
mm,
so less than 2 years. It's very, very new.
mm,
So when I was in grad school, what I would find myself doing, they would talk about CBT, cognitive
mm,
behavioral therapy, and I'd be like, no, that I'm not vibing with that. Um, oh, doing, mm, I can't even think of solution focused therapy, and
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah. All the
no,
focus.
that's not my thing. The closest thing that I connected with was EFT, emotionally focused therapy.
Mhm.
And that's usually what I work with, what I started working with, because I'm like, ooh, emotions, yummy, yes, give
Mhm.
me those. um, but now, as Doctora Sandra Leon Villa, she became my supervisor
Mm.
for my hours, and then that's when I started diving into more of the ancestral ways, and I'm like, oh, there was always something missing
Mhm.
from my grad program, but I never really knew what it was.
Hmm.
until now. So now, the thing that I guess the closest thing that I would have to, like, I don't know, would be this part of, you have to be very objective, right? And
Mm.
you're like that blank slate, and um, don't self disclose. They don't need to know anything about your life.
Yeah.
And in session, I'll find myself talking about my story, right? I mean, I'm not sitting there but like, let me make this hour about myself, but rather of like, hey, can I share something that might make this land a little bit better?
Yeah, yeah.
um, and when I would do that, I remember one client in particular, he was like, you know, thank you for sharing that. You sharing that made me, it like humanizes you. And I'm like,
Hmm.
I am human. I'm not a robot out here.
Mhm.
So part of connecting with my clients, and Steve, for you, now that you're starting this new journey, it won't be as black and white for you because you have you don't have a board uh, looking over you. uh, so you'll learn that by sharing your story, a lot of healing comes through that,
Yeah,
too. So I'm
definitely.
assuming that's how our ancestors did it, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me
Yeah,
on
I don't have a problem with that. I put all my shit out there, you know. I just share everything. Like I don't. I That's literally been a thing that I don't know how I got that. How that became a thing that I do, but I really just like, oh, this is happening, and that, and I already included in that, and in the times that I've talked with that person, I'll be like, oh yeah, I can tell you this based on experience, or this is what happened to me, and that definitely, you can tell that it helps, you know, because I think that's just part of it, you know, and a lot of people have reached out to me once again, just saying like, oh, thank you. Oh, we didn't even talk about that. You see that message? I don't think you even saw it, Norma. So I was telling my brother about how we had my brother German about how we wanted to do this build a nonprofit and all that stuff, and then somebody sends me a message. It's just like, hey, I just want to let you know that you helped me a lot by sharing your experience, and I signed up for therapy finally, and I
Wow.
was, you know, I was helping with that, and I was like, shit. And it was just crazy how it's like it just happened like as I finished the conversation with my brother, and be like, that's cool to see how that's already working. And it's been several people, once again, because I don't care, you know, I'm always sharing it, I'm talking about my story, and I think definitely think it's very important to, like you said, to do that, and to share our own story. And I think that's what it is. My kind of strength would be like to know, like, I've already gone through this shit, I know what it's like, and I can go from there, you know.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess talking about stories, how tell us a little bit about how you went into like your journey, your personal journey that took you, because one of the things that Steve and I talk about a lot is how what was it that clicked within you that was like, okay, I want to pursue this like clinical mental health counselor. Take us through that.
Yeah, yeah. So it was kind of like several kind of ways in which I kind of wound up in this place. I think one of the main things was that first it was like just kind of going through a lot of things that, you know, these kind of systems put people through, you know, just as a kid, just experiencing, you know, a lot of hardships from my family, like my parents, you know, getting into issues with, you know, the immigration system, and just kind of at an early age, just kind of having to go through things that probably kids wouldn't, like, it's probably not a good thing for kids to have gone through, like just, you know, experiencing like a SWAT team raid the house for some, you know, things that I don't like. It's just kind of like experiencing pretty much the subjugation of these war on drugs, and war on it feels like poor people, you know, and just kind of ending up as a young adolescent in South City, and just being there, seeing all these things like unravel, and then like towards my early adulthood, just experiencing that you know, like looking at people's experiences through you know, like the street violence, you know, and seeing the trauma that is left from that, and how kind of in a way trauma begets more trauma. And so my ways of going through it was, like I said, through music. It kind of helped me to just kind of try to stay on the straight and narrow. And also because I was born in Mex, it's really interesting how a lot of people who view our communities, they think that people who are undocumented are usually like quote unquote criminals and all that bullshit. Like, excuse my language, but
That's okay.
they
We're rapists and shit.
yeah, and it's like my experience was like I was trying to avoid all the crime and all that stuff because I didn't want to end up in a country that I didn't really know what was going on out there. You know, all I heard was what was on the media. You know, and just kind of that experience of just being having to really, in a way, be my own kind of psychologist. Because also I'm pretty sure I probably had access to a therapist. I'm unsure how the how Medi-Cal was working, or like how any kind of medical services were that were around when I was younger. But not really knowing what entailed with going to see a therapist, and it's still very unclear to a lot of our people. That's why I think a lot of people, it's not that they don't want to, yeah, I mean I think people, when they go see a therapist, like in our community, sometimes they think, oh, yo no soy loco, I don't have to go, kind of like what you mentioned, Norma.
Yeah.
I think also what is involved in that is just not really knowing the process, the procedure of therapy, what trauma is, any like like it's really kind of vague for a lot of us. So um, and in my, young adolescent mind, I would think, okay, well, I'm just going to try to find what I can find, and to get support. And there would be, some groups in the Bay Area that probably, needed a lot of help to facilitate the mental health support. Um, and it kind of put me in a situation where it's like, okay, like this doesn't seem ethical. This doesn't, you know what I mean? Like just experiencing groups that were like, okay, this is probably like not how things should be facilitated, but I appreciate the help and stuff. And so I was like, you know what, if I want to help people in mental health, but I want to do it in a way that is very ethical, very thoughtful of the person, very has this kind of structure, rather than like, okay, like you need help, here's this. And because I don't know if you know, I don't know if you noticed. Well, I'm pretty sure y'all both have noticed. Sorry, I'm a little tired today.
That's
But
okay.
Not good.
like my experiences sometimes were like, yeah, like this doesn't feel right. Like getting support from this group, and when I say groups, I mean like AA groups, emotional support groups. It was hello.
I can see. I can see
Oh,
you. I just changed
yeah.
it. You're just on full screen. You're good.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's all the
Uh,
attention
Don't
I
worry.
need.
Like,
I was like,
see, yes, you got
oh.
the spotlight.
Yeah, but just kind of experiencing that and being like, okay, like I want to know how to really do this work, and just kind of going through that myself, and also seeing that it's also, even though I've had this education now, it's still not like so black and white. Yeah, we have our ethical codes to follow, but when it comes to like process and progress of treatment, it's not so black and white. It's very it's so multi-layered and multicolored, and so that's one thing that I kind of learned along my way of trying to get into this field.
Yeah. How do you have the thing? Because I'm always interested, like Norma said on this conversation and all this stuff about how what like I know you mentioned the music and it could just be that, right, that you mentioned, but how do you open up your eyes to see there's something fucking wrong here? Like this is whatever the fuck is happening around me, because I think we get so caught up or we don't even realize what we're living, right? Like one example that we talked about last time is like I live with anxiety and some kind of depression all my life, and I didn't know what the fuck was happening, you know.
Mhm.
So how do you think you become maybe awake to the fact to see this is not okay, there's something weird, like how come or seeing the suffering or other people, like how do you think that became like something that you started to notice and maybe start, because the way you explain it is kind of like you maybe took a step back, right? And then you're able to see like, oh, there's all this trauma happening, there's all this shit, I don't want to belong to that violence, I'm scared, I don't want to get deported, all that shit. But how does one just grow up to just start seeing that and becoming aware of it? Like, have you thought about that?
Yeah, yeah. I think I feel like I was really I really appreciate growing up in the Bay Area because there is a kind of a contextual lens of just fighting for social justice, and there's a long history here in Oakland and San Francisco, you know, San Jose. There's a lot of history of people fighting for their rights and for social justice, and so I grew up very much in that kind of lens of understanding things. I think also my kind of it was kind of like within this journey of getting into a professional career. Just kind of growing up and seeing how friends would respond to the circumstances that we were in, and knowing like, hey, you know these folks aren't bad people, you know, folks who ended up, doing what they had to do to survive. It was more like, just the a human being being in a condition like this. A lot of times people were going to respond in a manner of like, either through violence, or through a lot of like the kind of the toxic ways that a lot of, us, like folks who identify as men, kind of respond to trauma. And as I mentioned before, trauma sort of like begets more trauma. So just kind of seeing that unravel in my community, and being like, okay, so how do I make sure that I don't, get into trouble myself, or get a record, or establish this kind of statistic that these oppressive forces are kind of guiding me towards? How do I, like, what can I do now? I think also familia, familismo in our community, that was something, being the older brother of my two younger brothers, knowing that if I were to be a part of some kind of organization, they would follow suit, and also, live a life that was in that kind of identity, of like being out there and like representing something that could end up with me, being into like incarcerated or anything like that. So I think that's what really kept me focused to keep things as positive as I could, as a young Chicano man, and just as I was going more into this field, like, okay, so I like psychology, but what can I do with this? How can I help others? In mental health, in this field, there's a lot of like experience that you need to, get where you need to get to. Like, to become a licensed therapist, you need 3,000 hours plus this exam and all these things. So, like, my journey to try to get these degrees, just kind of also shed more light of like, okay, the context of how I'm viewed, how my community's viewed, and how my family, and how my circle, how my neighborhood, how it's viewed within the context of quote unquote professionals, of like, oh, like, you come from that area, that part of town, and all these microaggressions of people, and I think what's fundamental though is and the pretty much the love that I have um, for for others, um, that is what I think that kind of was an emotion that I carried throughout this whole time of kind of navigating. Because sometimes you have to kind of you can't. I don't know if y'all have seen Dave Chappelle, his skit of when keeping it real goes wrong. So
Mm.
there's like this is old school Dave Chappelle, but there's like these bits that he would do where he was in like these kind of white spaces or spaces that were predominantly like excluding people of color out, and
Mhm.
somebody would say something to him, and he would like, oh, like I got to keep it real, and then that would get him into situations. So I guess I would have to keep it like I need to keep it as real as I can because that's my soul. I gotta keep it real in these spaces. At the same time, I would like experience these microaggressions and had to kind of just bite my tongue, and like that's one of those things that I've kind of learned. Like, okay, wait a minute, that's wrong. I love my community. I love people. So I don't in the mental health field and I think it's one of the ethical codes too. Like we can't like have these systems that originated as being used to like pathologize behavior, pathologize people's responses to these systems. We can't like continue perpetuating this form of oppression through our profession. Um, so I don't know. I forgot where I was going with that. I'm sorry.
All
I
good,
was
all
just
good.
going off. I'm like, all right.
It happens. It happens.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Um, like as you're saying this, the part of bringing love into our profession is it's something that is so important that I was not fucking taught in grad school. Like my professors didn't tell me you gotta bring love to the table to work with these humans, right? It was always like, well, how do you diagnose this person? How you treatment plan, and you have to make sure your treatment plan aligns with the diagnoses, and you have to show progress, like evidence based, like all these things. And I was just like, holy shit, I'm not gonna be able to do this. I'm not gonna be able to do this. Like, there is no fucking way.
Mhm.
Um, I know I want to help people, but I don't necessarily know what that looks like. And I'm like, so yesterday I was talking to a client, and he told me, he's like, I like brag about you to my friends. I'm like, thank you, hon. And he's like, I've had a couple of therapists before, and there is something about you that doesn't seem that I'm just a client to you.
Mhm.
And I don't know, other therapists would be like, well, I learned this new thing, so here, go ahead and try it. And he's like, you don't they were like, you don't do that. And I'm like, well, I do. Because there are things that I learned, and I'm like, well, fuck it, let's try it, right? See if it
Mhm.
works, see if it doesn't. And I think the difference, I told them, the difference between maybe the other therapist and me is that you're right, you're not just another client to me. When you are here with me for those 50 minutes, you are my only client. There's nobody else in this world but you. And a lot of what guides my work is love, right?
Mhm.
Like, and I think that that is what a lot of times sets us apart from other clinicians or from other healers, whatever, right? Like, there are people that are in this profession just to make a buck,
Mhm.
whereas like these three humans here, we really are coming from a place of, I want to help you. Like, I come from struggles, and I've learned to heal little pieces of myself, and it's beautiful on the other side. Come to this side. And that comes from a place of love, and that is the part that allows us to connect with people. And I think that's what makes a difference. I don't know if y'all agree, disagree.
Yeah,
What?
definitely. Definitely. I think it made a big difference when I told him, like, you don't deserve whatever happened to you, it wasn't your fault. No matter what happened to you, you are a kind person. You are love. You are meant to love. You're meant to share that. And no matter what you did, you didn't deserve this kind of treatment from this person. And I think that was like, oh shit, and just reminding you, like, dude, you gotta like love yourself, you gotta give yourself that, and not blame yourself and not be so hard on yourself, and also understand there's nothing wrong that you did that deserves this kind of treatment, and that's something that I learned. I talk about my daughters a lot because it's something that I learned at some point to be like, hey, I apologize, and then I just told her one time, hey, I'm sorry, it wasn't your fault. There's nothing that you will ever do that justifies me yelling at you or me getting mad at you or anything. It's completely 100% on me, there's nothing that you do that will ever deserve me doing that to you. So yeah, definitely, I think that. And that's something that, like, for me, it was later on the line in my journey, like learning to do that shit. But then that acceptance part, and that like loving you and being patient with yourself, it was like, yeah, that's very important, and because of that is something that I'm always sharing, and I'm always talking about, and just thinking about other conversations that I had over the past few weeks with some other people. It's just been that, like, people will come to me and be like, hey, this is happening with this and that, and this person doesn't get it, this and that, and I was like, hey, chill. How about you just try, like, being more patient, being more kind, sharing more love, and then see where that gets you, because you're just focusing too much on all the other stuff. And, like, remember, we're all humans, we're all struggling, we got shit to deal with. And if everybody's been telling this person or all these problems, and you're forcing change, and a lot of change and not a lot of acceptance, not a lot of kindness, not a lot of love, it's like, well, you got to jump on that. And that's what you should try, that approach, to make sure that you're giving this person a little bit of both, and because that's just, it's so easy to forget that. And for me, it's always been very, very, like she was telling you, I'm very like logical, and it just works. I'm like, whoa, do this, do that. And just
Mhm.
to go back on the comment, like, I fucking loved CBT, because
Mhm.
CBT just was like, for me, was like, and I still, and it's funny because I just like this to me, my brain works at, like, knowing how it works. Cool, I got it, I know. Like, I figure, like, that's all I need to know. That's how my brain works. Like, if
Yeah,
you I
yeah,
figure this out, this is how it works. Okay, cool. Now I know what I need to do or what I need to follow, and therefore, if I don't follow those things, I know what's the reason and why I'm feeling like this. So it's
yeah.
just that's easy for me to always jump based on my personality, to just be like, well, do this, do that shit, and realizing, like, hey, yeah, that's part of it, but once again, you need to address the emotion, you need to show love for yourself, and all that stuff. Really, really, it's really important at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's kind of like, as I was saying, like it's like fundamental, it like
Hmm.
boils down to love, love of self, love of your family, your partner, your community, your circles that you're a part of. I think it's essential to look at it in that way because, as I mentioned before, and I don't have because I'm like a blossom, like learning how to help others through therapy. Very new, very green, so don't have much experience with helping others through trauma. I do want to get more training with that, but I do kind of see that a lot as well with clients who have experienced trauma. It's like they kind of like they go through something and they end up like kind of almost like experiencing the world through just like either just thinking all the time, like ruminating on whatever they went through or what they're going through now, and just kind of not really being in their body really, and
Hmm.
kind of like not not really showing their body love at times, like if you're always thinking, you're going to be, forgetting to eat, take care of your, your hygiene, or stuff like that. People kind of they kind of lose that sense of love. And with love is there's vulnerability, there is acceptance, there's just kind of like being gentle with ourselves, I think, and in society, as as men, speaking as a man, like we're kind of taught to kind of just neglect our emotional experiences
Hmm.
as men. And the only emotions it's that are like socially acceptable at times is just to be aggressive and to be angry. And there's a lot of sadness, and there's a lot of other emotions that we kind of put to the side, and like, no, I'm pissed off at this person, or I'm pissed off at this situation. And it's like, I think when we love ourselves, that's when we're opening that opportunity to nurture ourselves, and to learn about our emotions, and to express them in a way that doesn't hurt other people, or ourselves.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely. That's something that I was telling in because once again, how my brain works, right? My brain wants to figure out what is how can I explain to you, how could I understand it in the most basic term for it to make sense to
Mhm,
most people. And what I'm figuring out of the more people that I talk to, because I'm aware of this, um I'm more aware because I'm seeing it more, because I'm more involved in it, right? I see people's trauma and I see people's things and their suffering and all that. And I'm just like, oh, I was telling my wife, I was like, it seems like everybody just suffers from the lack of vulnerability because
mhm,
life has fucked us up. And every person that you talk to is just that part of it, that you just don't want to be vulnerable and you don't even see it. Like you're so hurt and so much trauma that you don't even acknowledge that shit. And I'm just
mhm,
like, yeah, well, I can clearly see based on the patterns that you're fucking doing or the things you're doing how you're just not vulnerable enough. And not at all. I mean, and because we're just always so hurt, so hurt all the time, and you close up and you close up and you close up, and you don't want to share because of the pain, because it's been too painful, because you're too afraid of going through that again. So I keep coming back to, and I still haven't fully figured it out, but I do notice that like every person is that. Every problem that you have, a lot of those things is like you were hurt and then you shifted your behavior to some other shit that wasn't healthy. Be like, okay,
mhm,
how do we rail it back to be like, okay, and understand that, and open up yourself again, and open up your that, because I attribute my success a lot with my wife in our relationship to me doing that at a very, very early. Like we were just dating, and
mhm,
like for some fucking reason, I just did it, and I was super vulnerable with her out of some concern that I had, and it made all the difference. And it
mhm,
fucking made that, and I learned like just that very early on. It's like, oh, this is the fucking key. This is it. Like it felt good to open up my heart, to tell her how I felt, to tell her my concerns, and then to kind of heal from that issue and be able to move on and go from there. It was just like, yeah, this is definitely like something that's very important. This is something very that we must figure out and put together, and how important that vulnerability aspect of everything is.
Hmm.
abs- yeah, vulnerability. That's it's a challenge, to get to that space.
Yeah.
Uh, there's always whenever I help clients who identify as men, sometimes that kind of perspective comes up where it's like, no, like, like, so, let's talk about that, like something that they're trying to avoid or something. And typically it's like, no, and I always highlight that there is strength in being vulnerable as a man. There is strength in experiencing those emotions that we neglected, and even crying. There's a lot of strength. I think it's very manly to cry. It's very manly
Hmm.
to be vulnerable. And I always try to highlight that with clients who identify as men.
Yeah, definitely. I think I even like I take note for some reason of every time that I do cry, and I'm almost proud of it now.
Yeah,
Like I'm almost like, shit, I did it. Like yeah, there was a
it
shit.
feels
Like
so good to cry.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
so good.
Yeah. It was something like I'm telling you, the thing is like I'll just say whatever it was exactly because I don't mind sharing it. So my relationship with my mom hasn't been so well for most of our life and shit like that. And it was Father's Day, and she sent me a message, and she called me like my niño chiquito or something like that.
Mm,
And like that just like fucked me up, because of a lot of shit that's happened and everything that I was like, oh, I fucking, I need that. I
Mhm.
need that. You know, I haven't felt that love in so long that it was just like fuck, like that was good, and I felt it, and I showed my wife, and then I cried and everything, and I was like, oh, and I'm telling you, every time that I do it now, it's like, oh, good, you allowed yourself to feel this, like you
Mhm.
allowed yourself to embrace this and accept whatever you were feeling, and you felt it thoroughly, and like I was like proud of it, you know, because that's one of the things that I would struggle with when I was going through, started going to therapy and I started learning about all this shit. It was like, oh, if I cried today, I fucking failed. If I
Mhm.
Mm,
if I stressed out, I failed. It was
Mhm.
something like that, you know. So it was like when I was learning this, all that, and then eventually when I learned this, it was like, oh, okay. And one time I was just about to, and I was like, nah, you don't have to, and all that shit. And then I don't know how somehow I rationalized my feelings or whatever that stopped me from crying. And then I was like, nah, fuck that. You need to fucking cry. So like I pulled myself out of it, and then I brought myself back. Like I pulled myself out of the emotion or somehow just felt better. And then I caught myself and I was like, nah, you need to do it. So I literally brought myself back into that emotion and was able to like, nah, you need to fucking do this. And like just to be able to do that was like I said, it's very freeing, and it's definitely needed, you know. It's completely necessary.
yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely is. And, June being also Men's Mental Health Month, I'm like, I'm glad in this space that I am the minority, right? That I am talking to two men about
Mm.
mental health, and I'm like, oh my god, that just makes my heart tingle so much. Because it's usually people that identify as women that come into these spaces and talk about the emotions, and that's a privilege that we hold, right? Because it's okay for us to cry. But you're right, for men, it's something that has been so weaponized that y'all can't do that. I think it is super important, and I love that. And I wrote it down right now that you said there's strength in vulnerability. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
that is so true. If we connect it to our ancestors, like where does that come from, right? Like we come from a place of being colonized where that wasn't allowed. Like if you cried, like that could literally mean your fucking life.
Yeah.
So then men stepping up as the protector, right, as the provider of, there was no room for that because we were so in survival mode
Mhm.
that is what you needed at the moment, and you did the best that you could with what you had to survive.
Mhm.
And now where we're at, that's not our reality. But I don't remember where I heard it. It's This is not my, I want to quote somebody, but I don't know who to quote. That trauma gets passed down and then it becomes culture.
Oh, yes,
Mm.
yes. Ah,
And I
Raul,
don't
Mm.
remember where it's
that
like,
sounds familiar.
yes, but just right after generations of trauma, then like chancla culture, right?
Yes,
Chancla culture comes from a place of being enslaved and being beaten and stuff like that.
yes.
Where now it's like, oh, es de mexicanos de que tu mamá te pegue con la chancla, right? When
Mhm.
really it comes from a place of colonization, and we
Yes,
need to erase that.
absolutely.
So with men being able to be vulnerable, like it is so hard. And we need more people like you both, men that are willing to talk about how hard it is for you to cry as a man, and how important it is to be able to do it with one another. Because again, coming from that place of privilege as a woman, we have used that against men, right? Like anytime that a man can come to me and cry, like many times I've used that against them, and how then that allows for those protections to become even bigger and bigger and bigger. And the more they're there, the less y'all are going to open up. So making sure that the men that are willing to open up, that they do have a safe space to be able to share those emotions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for your palabra. And, I think you talked about your mom, Steve, about those experiences. I think the last time I cried I think it was the second to last time I cried in front of my mom.
I love
She,
how y'all are keeping count. There's no way I could.
I think the last time was I think it was because this the graduate program I was in was really a challenge, and so I was like always like really worried about doing good, and so I think I cried in front of her at that time. But then the second to last time, I was just going through some physical pain, and that being vulnerable and like crying in front of her, she was just like, "Why are you crying?" She's like, "You're a man, like don't cry," and that kind of like, wow, I can't express my emotions like that with my mom that easily, and that it kind of reminds me of what you said, Norma, about like though how like as men we're conditioned to like kind of adapt to these circumstances that have to do with a lot of oppression that historically we're taught like no no llores, don't, and that might have that might have been able to have helped us through certain kind of events or experiences before, to be tough and to tough it out with some things, but that kind of can lead to again us suppressing our human experiences as men with a multitude of emotions, and that suppression can really like lead to us being aggressive, and then being like not being good men to women, and to others in our spaces. It's That's one of those things where I looked at as well, like, wait a minute, like I have to kind of take care of what's going on with me, so that I don't, pass it on to even to my mom, and her response to my, emotions, me like being again like sometimes sometimes I feel like I'm a contrarian with a lot of things, and so just being
100.
like that with her, and inadvertently like hurting her through our heated discussions, and that's one of those things where it's like, oh, like this is important for me to heal, so that I don't pass those those cadenas to the future generations, and also to my current like people who are in my life right now. Like I don't want to treat people like that anymore.
Yeah,
And it's
definitely. That thing with the constraint thing makes 100% sense because I've always felt alone. I always felt like I'm always alone and be like, oh, I'm sharing all this shit and everything. And there's one other person who, when we were doing the other podcast, he was a guest on it, and he's like the only one that shares a response to what I'm saying or what I'm doing. Well, there's maybe two people, but still, compared to all the people that I talk to and all that stuff, that they um, it just probably feels so weird to talk about this shit, and to be so open about it, and to see me constantly doing it. It's like, well, what the fuck is this? And I wonder what people think sometimes. They'll be like, what the fuck is this fool talking about? Like, why is he always sharing that, or why is that, And other people saying like, man the fuck up, and telling me, man the fuck up, like do this shit, man the fuck up. I'm like, but I'm
yeah,
just like, bro, like you have such a fucking twisted idea of what it's
yeah,
like to be a man, to be
To
like,
be a
oh,
man.
drink, fucking drink so that you do this, make decisions, or be dominant, or like be like, yeah, like actually dominant over your wife or all this shit. I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like it
yeah,
just lets me know so much into what this person thinks and what they're inside of it, so yeah, it's I think hopefully it'll change, like Norma was saying, the more that we talked about it, and the more that we share these things, and it's definitely important. One thing, as a little side note, Norma, that we can talk about in another episode, that thing that you're talking about, having the privilege to that, is something I want to dive into, because it's something I've been paying attention to, how you are an advantage, because I see the the men in the relationships that I'm paying attention and analyzing, and even though the women take on all this fucking anger that we fucking men like just give to them and do all that shit, somehow to me they're still better off, because they're still sharing those emotions, they're still feeling those
Yeah.
emotions, doing that, and I'm like, yeah, well, we're like. I see a lot of older fucking people, especially you're like just fucked and angry in the corner, while somehow the women still manage to talk about it and deal with it and maybe come out on the other side, or at least be able to just share that and allow themselves to feel it some other way, because it's, I think it's something definitely to see how our genres or our societal roles or whatever just don't allow us to do that, and like men end up more fucked, I think, than women in a lot of the situations, even though, like I said, more men are the ones that are creating and pushing all this anger and all this
Toxic.
all this abuse and all the toxicity, yeah, to us women.
Well, I think it's important to recognize one thing, because you're saying men are the ones that are creating this, and I think it's, how do I say this? Uh, yes, it's men, but it's not. If we say men, then we are
Gotcha, yeah, I know what
putting
you
the
mean.
responsibility
Yeah,
on y'all, right? Where we have to acknowledge where we come from in terms of systems, right? So
Mhm.
we come from a patriarchy, a
Mhm.
system that was created that hurts both you and me just as much. So it's not that men are just being aggressive because they want to be aggressive. Obviously, there are those bad apples out there that are just going to be assholes and dicks, and that's fine, right? But um, patriarchy hurts you in that way, because then you are not allowed to be vulnerable, to share those emotions.
Mhm.
And I I want to say that I consider myself a feminist, and many people think like, "Oh my gosh, she's a feminist and she hates men and all this stuff." But quite the opposite. I
Yeah.
am such a big advocate for men's mental health. I want you to be able to have the yummy emotions, the vulnerable ones. I don't want to be just for y'all to just be in anger, right? Because it hurts you, it hurts us, it hurts our future generations, it hurts our past generations. So yeah, just wanted to point that out. Not men
yeah,
necessarily, but
yeah,
the patriarchy as
Yeah.
a system.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I just, whenever I say everybody, it's already wrong, right? So I gotta keep that in mind. Whenever anybody says everybody, I get fucked up in there. So yeah, there's definitely scenarios where it's the other way around and more
Yeah.
intricate than that. But the cases
Yeah.
that I was talking about, it seems like most of that is what's happening. Go ahead, bro.
I was gonna say, yeah, I think it's very important to look at the kind of intersectional lens of how our identities like have different degrees of privilege and also experiencing that oppression. An example is, like take a look at my identity. I'm a heterosexual man. Uh, very light skinned. I don't know if you could see on this camera, but I'm very like others would look at me. It depends on who the person is and why they're would identify me as such. But I could be looked on as a white man. And so I have that kind of degree of privilege too, to not really be oppressed on the basis of my skin color. I guess intersectionality kind of looks at all of these multi-layered identities and kind of really sees like, okay, so is like, how is this person suffering and how is this person kind of perpetuating human suffering? And I really appreciate, Norma, that you brought that up of looking at it as it's not just men or women or
Hmm.
uh, all these kind of identities. It's like so multi-layered, and looking at these different degrees of how someone is suffering and also how someone is likely making others suffer. This is like, it's very important to look at that, especially within these healing spaces.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. I think too with when you're saying within these healing spaces, uh, mental health in a way has also been used, has been like weaponized, right? To be like,
Mhm.
well, I'm on my healing journey and I no longer give a fuck about anybody and I'm gonna do me. And I think it has taken this part of like the Western lens, right? Of like, oh, you got to do you, boo. Like, make sure you
Mhm.
set those boundaries. You tell them, and then that prevents us from also going inward and being like, wait, but where am I fucking up? How
Mhm.
am I showing up to the world that it is also perpetuating ways of hurting others, right? Or how am I using those privileges or my trauma or my story, whatever, to put somebody else down? Because I think we also forget about it, and it's like, well, if you're gonna come, you better come correct. Otherwise, like, get the fuck out of here and be like, well, no, let's look inside. What are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is one thing that probably within the last year I've had to do to be like, oh shit, you're telling me that I also have a role in this. I have to take accountability. Ooh, I don't know if I like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's also important to look at what is it that we are doing, and even more so as people that want to help heal, right? Like the individual work that we do, and individual, not just individualistic, but like, how do I work on myself to make sure that it serves the collective
Mhm.
is super super important.
Yeah, that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that I feel like I really love about this profession, that I have to be good to help others, you know, and it's like it's essential, you know. I have to find that healing within myself, getting therapy myself, you know. It's I always joke it's like an endless chain of therapists having therapists, and then there's the final boss of therapy. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's very important to
Yes.
and you know, it kind of goes back to that collectivist lens of our community, you know, that I think it's the Lakota people that have I'm not sure that's their through their language the same, but whenever someone experiences a mental health related issue, you know, they say thank you for that person for bringing the issue that is within the circle into the light, you know, and it kind of showing that there's a vulnerability there that needs healing. And I think
Mm.
it's in a lot of Western psychology, it's very much the individual, you know, and you know there is some to some degree the you know our like kind of like you mentioned, Norma, that there's some degree of that individual because you know when a client comes in, sometimes they say, "Oh, this person did this to me, and this and that. Like, how can they do that?" And it's like I wish I could help that person, but you know, you're the person here, and you
But
know,
you're
how can
here.
you know, like yeah, like we can only control our own behaviors, you know, and we can't control others' behaviors, and I think that part of the individualistic lens is very important, and also like learning, like, wait a minute, if you know if I'm dysfunctional and you know I come into to the space with my family, you know, there's likely something going on within the family system that makes it so that you know I have experienced this, or you know probably my sibling is experiencing something else, and it's very eye-opening to see that, and very important for us to get that healing so that we can come into these spaces and help others, you know. It's really interesting how that works.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And going back to what Steve had you had asked earlier, I forgot exactly how you asked it, but that part of like, when do you kind of take a step back and realize there's something wrong here? And maybe this is where I go into like my woo woo stuff, my more spiritual stuff. um, Always, I think in family systems there's the identify patient, right? Like the person that is
Mm.
showing the symptoms,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's usually the person that's showing the symptoms, me and my family, the black sheep, the scapegoat, the the person that is meant to come to this world and break those patterns. And
Yeah.
it's a role. I want to think that this is a role that I chose even before I was born, way before I was born, that this was going to be my role in this lineage. I'm gonna come and disrupt shit more
Mm,
than a person that helps other people heal. I'm a disruptor.
nice.
I like to disrupt shit. So I think that as I navigated this life, somewhere along the lines, I became aware of that this was my calling and this was my path. And I think that path was there way before I even came
Mhm,
into this human body.
mhm.
Sorry, Steve.
That's fine. We talked about it. Whatever works for you, Norma. Whatever works for you. Whatever works for me. We're all inclusive. You can
You
do
know,
whatever works.
I really
Right?
love being a part of this space with y'all because I'm like in the middle of all of this. You know, I'm very logical, and that's what kind of led me to this profession because I'm like, okay, you know, in SF, you know, and there's like a lot of that hippie culture, and it's like, you know, like no, I'm not gonna talk bad on, you know, there's a lot of hippie culture that is very indigenous, by the way, but that
Yes, yes, yes.
you know, refurbished, rebranded, but you know, experiencing that and being very like, oh wait a minute, what's the science behind this? So I'm very much like that, but I'm also very much like, okay, so there's like a lot of teachings that a lot of indigenous peoples, you know, have maintained and or have lost, you know, through colonization. So learning of that. There's this quote that I'm reminded of as you were talking, Norma. I forgot who said this as well. I saw it somewhere online, but it's essentially like we are the who our ancestors dreamt of. You know, like we are like those people that our ancestors thought like, okay, there's somebody out in the future that's gonna like bring in this healing. You know, and I always kind of I try to live that as much as I can, and not only that, but also we are the ancestors of the future generations.
Yes, yes,
You
yes,
know,
yes.
something that
Mhm.
really also resonates with me a lot. You know.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that I always think about with my daughters, and I tell Celia, like, my wife is like, these fucking kids have no idea all this shit that we went through and everything that we done for them, and how much better their fucking life is gonna be because of the shit that we're dealing with. Like they're just so much more peaceful, so much more happy, so much more than, and that is gonna allow them. I always think about this shit. I'm learning this at fucking. I started at 28 and 34 now, and I'm like, they're fucking 7 and 3, and already being able to share this shit and be like, oh, mommy, it's okay to cry, or like, hey, it's okay, we're feeling a little bit scared, this and that, and then you're like, what the fuck? Like, where are you? Where are you gonna get to be? Like, how far are you gonna get more than I am? Because I'm learning this shit and I'm figuring out and how much more prepared you're gonna be and how much you're gonna be able to do from now. um
Hmm.
and to summarize the other thing, I do agree with that stuff and the colonizing stuff, because I just think what happens is the individualism and the capitalistic shit is fucks it all up. You
Hmm.
remove all that sense of community, all that sense of sharing information, and it's all about us. It's all about me, it's all about me, it's all about me, fuck everybody else.
Hmm.
And I guess if you think about it, I think we all kind of somehow, some way got the help from somebody else to get us started in this shit. It
Hmm.
was like, yes, there was something within us, but somebody shared some kind of information and we fucking lean into that. And we're like, okay, this makes sense. I want to pursue this. I like this shit. And you kind of go from there. Because for me,
Mhm.
when I think about it more and more, because I'm very interested in once again learning about myself more, and it's like, oh, the very first thing I learned in that after school program that I was at South City High School was the systems. Was
Hmm.
like, hey, you're not failing at this, and you don't have a fucking, you're not in the verge of not graduating just because of that. It's like you have a shitty high school, you have a shitty counselor, there's
Absolutely.
poverty, there's racism, there's all this shit. So I was actually, well, like, fucking shocked to learn all these fucking things, and like that was what I think started for me to pay attention to society as a whole, and
Hmm.
starting to pay attention to like what the fuck is going on. And actually, I want to say for the next 3 4 years, anger got me to educate myself. That
Mhm.
anger that I felt to be like, what the fuck? Like, really, there's all these fucking things and all that. Like, that's fucked up and all of that. And literally was that actual anger and then the love that started developing from that anger towards my people that I was like, what the fuck? Like, that's crazy. And it just kind of got me to go from there. But it was thankfully somebody sharing that information with me that kind of got me into it, for that. And I'm very, very thankful for that person to kind of go that, I think that's kind of what started that, which goes back to explaining myself why the why works for me so much. Oh, this is the system. Okay, learn from there, and then pay attention. Oh, this is how this shit works, and this is that.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's definitely we're doing something great by working on and talking about these things and just sharing all of our knowledge. I think that's a big part of the problem, and specifically sharing the fucking pain, sharing the sadness, sharing the
Mhm.
anxiety, sharing that part that nobody fucking talks about. I think that's what is vital to our growth and our development and just a happier fucking world, hopefully altogether.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of, because I know music, you mentioned that is a big thing for you. So I wanted to ask how you implement music in your own healing, and if you implement it with your clients, and how do you do it, right? Because especially talking about men, that is something that going back to not going to therapy, not sharing emotion, not having a safe space, how is it that they can use music to
Mhm.
maybe start their own healing journey? So I guess I asked you three questions in that.
No, no,
Um,
no. Thank you.
how do you use music for yourself? How do
Mhm.
you use it in the therapy room? And
How can they
how
get
can
started?
yes, thank you.
How can? What was the last question?
How can people get started in their healing journey if they're not ready to go into therapy? Like, how can they use music
Mhm.
to maybe start making sense of whatever shit they got going on?
Yeah, yeah. I think the culture of hip hop has it's kind of like that aha moment that Steve was explaining to us. That just hearing the works of Tupac. Uh, there's this artist that was very influential in a lot of my understanding of social justice was Immortal Technique.
Hmm.
Common from
Hmm.
Chicago. These artists that because growing up in the hood, there is a lot of like you have to kind of in a lot of cases, in my personal experiences, have to stand up for yourself. Show people, as a, as a man that like we have to like stand up for ourselves for people in our community. So there is that like kind of kind of that element of like being tough, in hip hop, that's how it is. And but there is those artists that are like, okay, yeah, that exists, but like, why are we here? Why do predominantly black and brown folks live in low income neighborhoods where job security is not that accessible, mental health is not that accessible, and all the traumas that people go through, and having them spill it out on the microphone. That's something that I think when I was in fifth grade, I started like writing down raps here and there, and it was a way for me to kind of let out all the things that have happened to me. Um, and I still engage with it. I'm much more focused on becoming a therapist, eventually a licensed clinician. But that I still, in my own personal healing, for me to be in these spaces, and to kind of like find an outlet of releasing all those continued experiences of suffering in a way too, just through getting a pad and pen and listening to a beat and just writing how I've been feeling throughout the day, throughout the week. throughout my life. That's something that is able to. It's kind of like almost like a form of narrating what has happened to me, in a way that really emphasizes empowerment and overcoming these things and being vulnerable. I do have music that is out there and is published. So I'm very happy about that, to share that part of me. I feel like I haven't incorporated these two identities in my life, like into one yet, because my approach is very client centered, and not everybody listens to hip hop music. Sometimes there is that negative kind of stereotype of hip hop being about drugs, gangs, and that kind of those kind of elements, which in the hood, that's there is that, but also there is that like that overcoming of our circumstances. So I haven't really quite incorporated hip hop music. However, there is publications out there. If you go on Google Scholar, for those clinicians that are in this field, that have to do with hip hop, incorporating hip hop into therapy, and it being like a form of emotional exploration and release. But because I'm very client centered, the way in which I incorporate music is just kind of taking a step back and asking clients like, okay, so you want to feel less anxious. What are some things that you do that help you with that? And sometimes clients would say like, oh, I just listened to this song that really resonates with me. And so it's like, okay, so let's either like trying to explore the lyrics of the song or the emotions that are felt from the song. That's ways in which how I incorporate that, or also just kind of focusing on like, okay, so an example is like, all right, let's see, would you want to dedicate like let's say 30 minutes of your day to listening to songs that really make you feel relaxed, and just exploring that with them, like, okay, what kind of emotions come up, and exploring those emotions that they feel when they listen to the song, why it narrates, well, I mean, sorry, why it relates to them, and also if that's related to either like their past, their traumatic experiences. A lot of the times, like if you look up some lyrics, Kendrick Lamar is a perfect example. The last album he had something about I forgot the name of the song, but it's he's talking about in the hook, in the chorus, it says daddy issues. Like he's talking about how he grew up with a lot of daddy issues, and a lot of his friends didn't have a dad, and that personally resonates with me. Of like, I had a lot of friends who grew up with their parents being incarcerated, and I had to have my dad was incarcerated when I was a child too, and so having to experience those things and hearing that through like sounds and this music. Kendrick Lamar has placed me into a lot of experiences where I ended up crying after hearing his songs. It's just that deep. But as far as the last question, getting started on the journey, it it starts a lot with having a plática, having pláticas with people in your life, who really want to, who are really there to hear you and to not judge, what you're going through. Having a plática and then understanding that, like, yeah, I may have this plática with a relative or a sibling or something like that, or someone like that. And but just knowing that, like, okay, this person, they can hear all my shit, but if it comes down to it, like, I might need to speak with someone who's trained to have these conversations with me and to help me on my healing journey. I think that's that kind of understanding of like, okay, um, starting off with the plática, but also like, okay, learning that, like, okay, maybe my brother can't help me with everything that I'm going through. So, trying to find that mental health support. The barrier there is access. It's like how are people going to access that? And that's something that I am looking at all the time. Like, yeah, you could tell someone like, yeah, you probably need therapy, you should talk to someone. It's like, okay, is the therapist going to be culturally competent? Is the therapist going to understand all my experiences, or most of what I went through? Is the therapist going to kind of understand what the circumstances are now? And that kind of boils down to us as clinicians, like getting that proper training, to be very culturally competent, and um, to kind of learn more of the cultures that we're not familiar with, and
Mhm.
trying to learn. So I guess it starts with like letting it out through, like that words, the verbal, the language, letting it out. And then that, to me, that's in my opinion, I think that'll guide folks to, okay, let me see what I can do with, the limited resources that we have as a community.
Mhm.
Definitely. I want to invite you to come back and let's do one on specifically music, because that's something that once again I'm paying attention to, and it's a very strong thing in my life too. Not
Mm,
because my dad was a DJ and I used to DJ and all this stuff, so I have a very thing to music, but hip hop
yeah.
itself. I was just thinking about how I'm able to appreciate Kendrick Lamar so much. You're talking about Father Time. I
Father
think that's
time,
the kind of
that's
song
the
you're
one.
talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just thinking about it, and I was like, well, why? And it was the same thing of like, how am I able to pay attention to this, or why am I so who I am? And yeah, hip hop has definitely been there for me too. You thinking about Tupac, the Ice Cube songs, what's the one song from the group by Houston, "My Tricks on Me." All those
Mm,
things. Has been
yeah, yes, yes, yes.
a lot of songs. And Mortal Technique is fucking hardcore, bro. Like,
Yeah,
that's the reason. Like, you can literally tie who I am when it comes to the social justice stuff, literally to him. Like
yeah,
100% is because of him.
yeah,
And that,
yeah.
and
Shout
like,
out Mortal Technique, man.
yeah, definitely. Like, it's people don't know about him, and he has like barely like 400,000 or 500,000 followers, and I'm like, dude, this motherfucker knows his shit, and he's been putting on and talking about this for so long. It's somebody that I definitely pay attention to. So yeah, that's definitely something we probably can come back and just kind of dive deep into, because I
I
think
would love that.
that could be a middle ground. That's something that people can relate to, that you can talk about this specific song, that it's in their radar, that they can talk about, that it can grow from it. um,
Yeah,
and I think if I can put my little opinion here, I think it's just the music gives us the ability to feel what we're feeling. It's kind of like we're talking about it and we feel heard, right? Like, this song exactly understands, this artist exactly understands what I'm going through, that allows me to feel heard and understood, which is the same
yes,
shit that we're craving and that we want to do, just to heal altogether.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. It's very good stuff, man.
Yes.
What about you, Norma? When it
She
comes to
don't like
like
music. She
music?
just sits and quiet.
I'm just here for the ride.
Yeah.
Um, I when it comes to music, I like music, and it's something that I gravitate, but more, not so much the lyrics of a song, but more of like the movement.
Mm,
I'm a very, 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 very somatic based therapist.
nice.
Uh, so I don't incorporate music so much in my practice, like actually talking about songs per se. But I can think of a client that was very, very dysregulated in session, and I'm like, I don't know how to get them out of here. Like, what do I do? So I just played a song. I played a song for them, and to them it's called Pajarito Colibrí by Natalia Lafourcade.
Mm,
And she's like, I don't know why you play that song. And I'm also a very intuitive therapist. Like, I try to pay attention to what my intuition's telling me. divinely led. And she mentioned that that made a whole world of a difference, like just me playing that song, and now she likes that song.
Mhm.
So not necessarily in the sense of like lyrics, but more of like movement in my personal life. I
Mhm.
listen to music all day, like in the morning, but it's more like I use it to move my body because that helps me release.
Yes.
Yeah, but I need to get on that hype of Kendrick Lamar, and I guess give me your favorite songs by who was it?
Oh, Immortal
More,
Technique.
Yeah.
the moral technique is gonna be super hardcore for you. A lot of violence, a lot
Yeah,
of corruption, a lot of shit.
yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
dance
It
with
will make you
the
want to like
yeah,
uprise.
it's heavy and it's really really heavy. Like for a while, like when I was going through like my anxiety and my shit, I couldn't listen to his shit because it's very fucking heavy and it's very
Mm.
like that, you know. Like Dance with the Devil's like one of the super super fucking hardcore.
Yeah, that one's very
Um,
hardcore.
yeah, it's I mean, just to tell people before you listen to it and the shit, and just by me saying it, it kind of feels kind of hard. It's about somebody that rapes his own mom without knowing.
Hmm.
So it's like shit.
Okay.
Really
So
brutal.
and
Yeah.
it's not only songs that you listen to, like his genre is literally all that. Like his genre is all about social justice and all that, and has that. Like he has another song, which what's it called? The one about the girl with HIV. What's that called?
Oh,
Um,
but that one, man, that's another one of those tear
let me pull my
jerkers, you know, that
let me
had
pull
me
my
really
Spotify.
crying.
Hold on, bro. I can share the screen. I feel so fucking. I get so hype with this shit. Be like, oh, I don't think we can play the music because we don't know what might get us.
Copyright, yeah.
Yeah. Is it even
That
live?
is
Yeah.
one of the. I remember at the time I heard that song, I was in a long distance relationship with someone, and that that one really just
Yeah.
really brought a lot of
Dance with
tears.
the see. Yeah, Dance with the Devil's number one, Peruvian Cocaine, Point of No Return, and also all of those. Like, uh, there's so many of
Yeah.
them.
To give a
Dance with
little
the
background
Devil,
of Immortal
Property,
Technique,
Speak Your
he
Mind.
was incarcerated for I forgot how many years, but he was in the prison system in New York. He comes from Harlem, New York.
Okay.
And so he does kind of uh, in my opinion, he like his music is meant to like agitate people from the normal passivity of living in a modern capitalist society. He's meant to like agitate that kind of just kind of passivity at times.
Yeah, you never know. That's the one.
You
That's the
never
one
know.
about the
Yeah,
girl. That's the one about the
yeah,
girl with HIV. So yeah, that's one of his things. Yeah, but he's one of them. Like literally, like his music could be anthems for revolution, like straight up. You know, like
yeah.
a lot of his music is like that. But yeah,
Yeah,
you
and to go to Kendrick Lamar's projects, I think Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers is the name of his last album. He was really able to just talk about so many things in our society that are going on today, and he really pushes the envelope of just kind of what it means to exist as a in his experience as a black man in our society. He comes from Compton, a place that was really a challenge. And but there's also a lot of beauty in his community too that he really puts out there. Yeah, I would love to talk more about this. More about
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
music.
like,
that's what I'm telling
apparently
you.
I need to do a lot of homework so that we need
I've
to
been
to
telling
bring
her.
this
I've been
this
telling
I
her.
know.
Yeah.
I'll do it. I'll do it
Mm,
eventually.
yeah. I mean, to put it to you this way, like I had one of my family members that is also going through his journey and wants to start healing and doing all this stuff, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna tell you something. Listen to every fucking Kendrick Lamar song, and you'll fucking learn something for it. But just remember, his lyrics are intricate and shit. You have to write that shit
They
down. You have to listen to it
are.
Yeah,
multiple times. You have to take your time and kind of do it. I look at breakdowns. I read the lyrics. I listen to the
yeah,
song a lot of times, and then you still find like new shit like
Yeah,
so many times under like I'm like mind blown. I'm like, what the fuck? How is this even? How is this dude even doing this? Like,
yeah,
it's so
yeah.
crazy. It's so crazy. So yeah,
And like if you
definitely.
really think of it, like looking at you know a lot of indigenous circles, the drum is essential. The music, the songs that have been uh, preserved, through this these systems of oppression, and personally being able to be in those kind of spaces, and being in those ceremonies with some people in indigenous circles, having to be next to the drum, and like trying those songs, and in sweat lodge ceremonies, that's something that me, I was like, wow, this is something that my ancestors were probably, using, the medicine of music, to heal, you know.
Mhm.
Definitely. Definitely. All right. So anything else you want to share? You want to leave us with some kind of piece of advice, some kind of knowledge? You want to share some books, some other podcast or something you want to leave us with? Go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I think I guess the last words I would say is, you know, any whoever's hearing this, whatever it is you're going through, just remember that you're not alone. That's something that I hope it doesn't come off as like cliche or anything like that. But we're all part of this human experience. All of us right now. We're all going through something. And just recognizing that. When whatever it is whatever we go through, it's not just us, and it's also not the end. Life is like a wave. There's ups and downs and ups and downs, and there's a down, and then there's an up, and then there's a down, and then so it's like it's gonna be constant. And so being mental health is not necessarily about, oh, I go to therapy, I feel good all the time now. It's like it's not, it never really works that way. It's mainly like, okay, I'm going through therapy. When times get tough, I have all these tools, I have this person who I have conversations with, and I'm able to navigate a little bit more fluidly. And I think I hope that resonates with whoever's watching this. And I really appreciate you, Steve, for having me here, and thank you so much, Norma, for your palabra, and for letting me be a part of this space here, this virtual space.
Yeah, thank you so much for reaching out. I was so happy when Steve told me that you had reached out, and I'm like, yes, let's do that. So I hope it isn't the last time. Apparently, there's gonna be a music one, so we'll plan for that one. But we'll definitely. I would love to continue to have these types of conversations. Thank you.
Thanks.
Cool, cool. All right. So I just thought about this. We're throwing some shit on the fly here because it works together, right? So at the end of every episode, we like to do current events. And
Hmm.
we know what happened yesterday, Raul, right? We know what
Oh,
happened
yeah.
yesterday. So there it is. It works
Pop up.
perfectly. It was meant to be, right? So Norma,
Yeah.
this is Kendrick Lamar had his a concert for Juneteenth, where
Juneteenth.
he brought out all of his friends, and they had a show at the Kia Forum, which I was mad I didn't freaking get the tickets to go. I should have gone.
Yeah.
It would have been amazing to be there.
Did you get to see it live though?
Yeah, I saw it live. I watched it.
Oh,
I watched
nice,
it live
nice.
on the stream, so it was still cool to see. So before I give my opinion, tell me what you think and how does make you feel, bro?
It really just, I feel like right now there is a resurgence of that true hip hop element that Kendrick has so eloquently and poetically just reintroduced. It's unfortunate that there is it's not like so easy for, there's a lot of boundaries that need to be pushed in hip hop space now with corporate hip hop, which I think Drake pretty much personifies. And he caught a lot of those bullets, and a lot of people say justifiably, I think this just really just I think he kind of like cleared the slate of what it means to be an MC, and what it means to exist in this like time right now of the human experience, as in America, and so yeah, that's something that this was a moment in hip hop that just is. We're gonna talk about this for years, our grandchildren, great grandchildren, just I remember, like I was there when
Yeah, yeah,
Kendrick Lamar,
definitely.
like,
Back in my day,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, back in my day,
So yeah,
yeah, definitely.
historic
I
moment.
mean, I definitely agree with you. I I wish I want I like if I was to tell her something like thank you for sharing, thank you for allowing me to see myself seen, and for you to share the struggle and the life that I've kind of lived and see
Mm,
the things that we've shared together in our life. Seeing
mhm,
his love for the culture and like this is hip hop, this is hip hop, and to share the positive message to show that you can be the best ever and be conscious and do things the right way is something I think that it hasn't been done before to the level that he's doing it, and it's just fucking amazing. And like actually his music to me is like I've listened to it here and there, but like over the last year it's just been like I'm obsessed with it, and that's a
mhm.
lot of the shit that I
Same.
listen to now, because once again I feel heard, and this had the significance of at the same time bringing the LA culture together. As you know, there's a lot of gangs and all that stuff. So having rappers from all different kinds of sets and everybody's just dancing and having fun and showing the
Yeah,
unity is like something beautiful to see. And at the same time, I want this from us. I was like, where's the? I'm like searching for like where the
bro, I'm
Mexican
already
artists at
getting
that
the
do
pen
this
and
shit.
pen now. You know what I mean? I'm already,
Yeah, like
I'm
where
already
is this?
looking
Like
up.
how do we find this culture? Like where are this artists at? I don't want to fucking. It's cool to hear about the drinking and the shit and whatever is party music, but I'm like, where's this at? Where's the banda with the fucking social conscious fucking lyrics to it? Where's that shit with the real struggles? Like who's creating this shit and who's doing it? Because I've been craving something that once again is more meaningful to me than even this, because yes, I'm part of the culture of the hip hop culture, but to have someone that relates to me more on that on like my Mexican culture, Chicano culture,
Yeah,
would be
Raza
even
hip
great
hop.
to see that, to find somebody that
Yeah.
shares and talks about that would be amazing. But yeah, it's just amazing to see how far he's gone, and like I said, everything that he's done for the people and showing that you can be a good fucking person and succeed. You don't gotta give in to the fame. You don't gotta give in to the lifestyle. And from the very beginning, his music has stayed. He stayed true to himself, and it's
Mm.
very inspirational. But yeah, just if you want to get into Kendrick Lamar, have some patience. Get a pen,
Yeah,
write that
yeah.
shit down,
Like I
listen to
said,
it
I'm
multiple
getting out
times.
the
Don't
pad and
don't do this shit. It's,
like like I said, I'm already getting out the pad and pen. It's very
yeah. So
motivational,
he's
and
telling you multiple.
yeah. So hopefully,
Yeah,
on the next
definitely,
one, you get to hear.
definitely.
I would love to break down the lyrics that I've written in some songs as well. That'd be a beautiful experience.
Yeah, definitely, bro. I think that's cool because I think,
Yeah.
like I said, it's something that we can relate to, something that everybody understands. Everybody knows music, right? Everybody does that, so it's a great way to share our feelings and kind of go from there. All right,
So
guys.
you
Well,
did mention that you had some songs of your own, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Are
So
they
I have
like out somewhere?
Yeah, yeah. So I have some published music called. So my rap name is Aztec Ruins. It's pretty much a, kind of like a play on words. I feel like being a Chicano. I often run into like learning about my ancestors, and knowing that, not all of us as raza, as Mexicans, that are mexica. A lot of us.
Are
Oh,
you?
thank you so much for putting it out there. Yeah, and so learning that, just kind of like ruining, ruining it for a lot of people of what it means to be Chicano and how we're portrayed in the media. A lot of times it's like what you would see in Hollywood as far as like Chicanos in movies would be like playing the cholos, and never like like, oh, this fool's going to school, or like, it's ever. So just kind of changing that narrative, and understanding that there is a lot of resilience, and there has to be a lot of cultural humility with what it means to be descendant of indigenous peoples, and I try to put that out there in my music. And I really appreciate you showing this. It's a lot for me.
We got you. Yeah, man. Thank you for sharing. Hopefully this get the obviously helps out get the word out, and yeah, we'll definitely keep in touch. We'll keep seeing you. Hopefully more episodes, and continue to talk and continue to do the good work. And this is also very helpful for me to know that I have somebody else that I can talk to, somebody else that understands the stuff, and somebody that we can share. And hopefully we
Absolutely.
continue to build a relationship from here and going forward, bro.
Definitely.
All right. Well, take care. Don't leave. I'm gonna end the podcast. Take care of yourselves, and we'll be here, and we'll see you next time. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Let me play the outro. See you later, guys.
Peace.
Peace.